See, I think you've got this wrong. Whilst those penitent sisters fight for their dying god, we are gods fighting for our sisters. No mere lonely trinity of bolter, flamer, and melter. No, we have higher powers of chems, stimms, and poisons, and they feed our violence. It is pure, because we won't just melt your face off. We will burn you from the inside and let you die as slowly as we desire. So heed the steps of each and every sister, because each of us is set equal within our ranks to prove ourselves greater, rise above the others, and send fear and destruction to our rivals in both life and in death. And thus, you should kneel the heel boots of our mothers, as without us you will just rot like the rest, because without us, who will feed those bovine brutes their lust for strength? Who will keep those technophiles safe from their self-inflicted sickness? Who will keep those fatted nobles on ecstatic excesses? I tell you this, no one, none of them, but us.
The House of Escher is one of the oldest surviving houses there is, and it is no wonder why. With not only extremely efficient organisation and highly adept fighting styles, they also have a vice-like grip over many of the other houses thanks to their chemical creations, which means they are one of the most feared and respected houses in Necromunda. It is, however, through their chemical experimentation that we can chart some of their greatest disasters, as through meddling with their genetic coding, they effectively destroyed their male line of their house, leaving them wasted husks that live only but a few years unincubated. As such, great warehouses full of vats holding these sickly specimens are maintained purely for the purposes of reproduction. This, though, led to the rise of their meritocratic matriarchal society, which has made House Escher stronger as a result. This is thanks in part to their doctrine of the Blade's Edge, which is where they define a strict rule of leaving their chems, stims and poisons strictly on their blades and their beasts and never more on themselves. Because with a clear and focused mind, a fighter can be aware of all of their surroundings, and a poisoned edged blade can end a fight even before it's begun. This has created a house of exceptional deadly warriors and a high house in turn of political fluidity and precision, which means whilst the Delac are still scheming and the Goliaths are bashing down the door, the Eschers have already broken and resealed the locks, stolen the treasure and had time for a light breakfast. And next time when you think you've got them sus, they've already pivoted. They'll let you steal the treasure and ambush you later, because that is the power of House Escher. The structure of this matriarch is broken down into three distinct roles, that of the maiden, the mother, and the matriarch. The maidens make up nearly half of the house's structure, and they are in fact the fighting force of the gang. The Eschers in fact enlist more of their peoples than any other house, as such their force is great and deadly. These maidens are then split between the ganger types you can create in the game, from Jews to wild runners to gangers. And in death, they still serve. As through the power of their chems and stims, they have learnt the secret to prolonged life beyond the grave, where unfortunate gangers become bioengineered murder corpses fueled by chemical aggression in the form of death maidens. Fuck, they're cool. Yes, this high number of young and inexperienced fighters does lead to a number of losses. However, the power and strength of this house's doctrines leads many to flock to their ranks. And in that, each and every ganger can prove themselves within the gauntlet of the hive to rise to the position of mother or even matriarch. The term mothers is one reserved predominantly for those who work in the clan factoriums and the Chimus cults. Now, these cults, as with everything in the grimdark future, is shrouded in ritualistic mystery, and here in part aided by some strong and powerful pheromones. The leaders of these factoriums are known as Clan Chymist. These legendary figures are not only revered by those within the House of Blades, but all within the hive, as it is their chems, stims and poisons that both aid, excite and terrify the peoples of Necromunda. Once one of these mothers, or even maidens, prove themselves beyond the exceptional, they could then rise to the position of matriarch. This exalted level of matriarch is the core of the House of Escher and the heart of its wisdom and strategy. These matriarchs lead the house families, and those with the most power, influence, or skill can find themselves being part of the Council of Crones, unfortunate title that may be, who advise the highest of them all, the Matriarch Primus. This council is made up of a mix of ex-gangers, clan chimis, factorum leaders, and even death maidens, giving the Matriarch Primus advice on all factions of the Escher house: chemical fabrication, distribution, political intrigue, and war. The current Matriarch Primus is Queen Adina Sabine. She is born of both of the major houses, Vestia and Sabine, who each have held and led the Eschers most since the first Matriarch over a millennia ago. Beyond these three main facets, there is a fourth part of the House of Escher, a peoples known as the Shivers. These wise and gifted women exist either as everyday workers or hidden amongst the halls of the higher houses, as their power is one of great wealth within the house, as these mild to potentially powerful psychers can offer guidance and insight into political intrigue, but also be there to bestow curses upon your foes. They are though hunted by the Imperium and Helmar's thugs, and when they come knocking, the house is tightly woven, and those of exceptional skill find a way to disappear when needed. One of the first questions that surrounds this gang is that of its other name, the House of Blades. Now, if you get a chance to go to the Grand Library in Hive Primus and have a look at the Necromunda Nobilis, you will see that it states that the name was founded at the time when the houses were all united under Helmar's watch, where three gang queens finally bowed to the imperial rule under Helmar at the end of the Second Great Purge in a ceremony called the Pledge of the Blades. It is stated at this ritual all three bloodlines were merged to form the house that followed. If we look further back in history though, we can chart this name to a tribe of warrior women known as the Blades. They were led by hive queens, and in M32, or the Age of Blood as it was known then, were led by the three known as Celestria, Sidena, and Solarana. Through this period of great turmoil on the planet, where the imperial rule was shaky on the ground and Necromunda was in a world-spanning war for supremacy, these three warrior women took the Imperium's coin in exchange for murdering rebellious hive kings, all the while working against them to protect those under their care. These descendants of the Arrhenius continuity were said to have maintained endless use through the use of clone banks deep within the hive, where they continually exchanged their ageless bodies with a young replacement to lead the house for nearly 3,000 years. Eventually, each one rose to be the leader of a hive city of Necromunda and its surrounding area. This lasts though until the aforementioned time when Helmar cemented his promise to the Imperium to bring peace to the world of Necromunda and forged the clans and houses under the Necromunda Nobilis in M35. It is as Helmar's rise becomes apparent that our three heroines have a change of heart. Not only do they see the vulnerability in maintaining clone banks for millennia, but they also see opportunity in this peace for a new generation. As such, they combine three of their bloodlines into one, and 5 boys and 7 girls are born of this union, and these new generation of Eschers are the progenitors of the house that will follow henceforth. These strong and powerful warriors rise high in Helmar's reign, and under the guidance of the first matriarch, Athasasi Ashbourne. She is the first to hold the title of the young and the ancient and to wear the three-faced crown. These are both the title and the crown that are still worn by the matriarch Primus to this day. This piece, however, as with everything in Necromunda, is unlasting. As we move into the middle years of M35, there is a huge schism in the House of Ulandri, as there are those within the house who have become tired of the excesses and indulgences of the lofty spires of the hive cities above. They seek to forge themselves in flame and fight once again, fed on the stories of the warrior women of the Blades and the Eschers of Four. One Lord Arthurus, under the banner of House Athenos, takes half the gang down into the hive to seek this fame and glory once again. However, those that remain under the banner of House Ulandri see the Athenos for what they are, merely fanatics dooming themselves to death and destruction in the gang wars below. Yet, they are actually wrong, for it is Athenos who thrive at first, while the Ulandri just remains and withers in the hive cities above. See, Athenos take the first step towards cementing their power by taking control of the chemical industries of the hive. Now, this is something that becomes intrinsic to the doctrine of the Eschers from this day forward, and something that allows them to create warriors of an immense class that is able to take them on to greater and greater successes. And one of those major ones that we can talk of now is when they get to take the Great Ash Waste Road, the key transportation network between the hives and the mines in the Ash Waste. This is the thing that puts them at the top of the pile once again. However, as with everything in Necromunda, nothing remains the same for very long, as both external and internal conflicts come to the bear to break House Athenos apart. Firstly, a very minor religious mishap. The mispronunciation of Saint Valor as Valon causes a huge religious riot, and in recompense, the Adeptus Sororitas take 100,000 penitents as payment in lieu. From then on, as with all gangs who reach power and fame within the hive, there are always those inside it who wish to take it for themselves. And as such, minor and greater individual coups and revolts start to happen within the house, and that slowly starts a decline that lasts for millennia. Now, the final death knell for Athenos comes in M37 when another house goes through its own revolution, that of Helmor, as two siblings Sindarak and Gothric fight for the rulership of Necromunda itself. Now, as mentioned, as Ulandri had succumbed to the privilege and decadence of the Spires, they had though in that time been able to manipulate and maintain a very high level of political prowess. And in that, they used all of this power to put their weight behind one member of these two warring siblings, and that was Sindarak, who was the eventual leader. However, the House of Athenos, already split and divided with its own internal warring factions, split its allegiances between the two siblings, and as the war raged on, their numbers began to dwindle, whilst Ulandri, taking the correct side and one individual side, was able to regain and flourish. However, as the Ulandri take their rise once again, another schism forms in the house, and it is born and bred of the same ideologies that happened with House Athenos, a seek to revive the warrior women ideologies of the Blades that happened in the past. However, unlike their Athenos brothers before, these Eschaki women, who can trace their lineage back all the way to the Blades themselves, they take their time. They patiently watch as Ulandri takes rise with Sindarak, and they wait to the moment of exact strength to take their exile into the hive cities below. And as they made their way into the Underhive, they soaked up what remained of House Athenos, well, at least those that were loyal to Sindarak, as it seemed that those that were loyal to Gothric went over to the Goliath side. And now with this clan house reborn under a new banner, with a new doctrine of the Blades and the ideology born afresh, they were able to thrive. And again, it was based on their chemical ingenuity, as they retained their chemical factorums and were able to build and manipulate that into creating warriors of great strength. In gaining power in this fashion, they were always going to capture the eyes of both those who have it and those who wish to take it. And the first of those who wanted to bring the fight to the House of Ashaki were that of the Goliath. Now, these are not the Goliaths that you know today. These are not the vat-born, gene-smith, chem-induced, fuel-rage monsters of the current campaign settings. No, these are humans battle-hardened in the fighting pits of Necromunda, or flame-wrought by the forges and mines in which they work. On top of that, they also garnered some fighters from the other side of House Athenos. Those that were loyal to Gothric had joined forces with the Goliath and were wishing to take revenge on the others who joined forces with the Ashaki. And this war raged on for many years to come, and it was bloody and never-ending at times, yet the Ashaki were able to become victorious through, again, the use of their chemical prowess, through the gene-enhanced berserkers, ash dancer assassins, and combat-fueled murder squads they were able to employ. But, as we know, this bioengineering and this chemical prowess, even though it exerts their dominance within the world of Necromunda, it is what will become their eventual downfall. Now, as we've just seen through this war with the Goliath, the Ashaki were able to effect and perfect their chemical weaponization and gene smithing. And with that, most of their warriors were eager, if not willing, to take on any of these gifts that were given to them, even though they were aware of the side effects of possible stim-induced death or crazy and weird body malformations. This immense power led to a dark and feared reputation for the House Ashaki that lasted for over a millennia. In this time, they not only grew within their ranks, but subsumed aging and now lost houses such as the Kithkir, or those who found themselves cast out by their own, such as those of the Cawdor left in the wake of the Redemptionist coup. The push and desire for better and more advanced chems and stims, as well as perfecting of those house fighters through genetic tampering, led to greater and more frequent moments of malformation in their male offspring. At first ignored and then later hidden, these were seen as merely just glitches in the code. However, with patriarchs such as Athenos the Strong, who literally had canisters affixed directly to his armor and into his veins that he was constantly supplied with combat stims, these malformations were but a nuisance to the real goal of greater warriors and further strength. However, there were a much greater, more deadly, and definitely more public signs of this infection in the house. As for example, when a group of chem warriors were sent to rid a hive of a helot infestation, after easily destroying their foe, they were so fueled by a chemically induced murder frenzy that they just continued to destroy the rest of the hive with it, killing effectively those they were sent there to protect. It wasn't soon after this that 9 in 10 males of this Ashaki line were born so badly deformed they did not see past their second birthday. It wasn't though until M39 that this flesh curse, as it was then known, eventually made its way to the patriarchy. And the last man to rule the Ashaki was one Elok Twiceborn. And in a very emperor reminiscent way, he was kept alive by the one thing that had risen to power but also caused all the deformations to his withered body, that of chemstims, constantly supplied through his veins as he lay there wasting. This slow death of the house brought the vultures. Firstly, the Vansar took House Secundus from them, and then House Renlo took Ceres and Mortis. However, there were moments of hope that were quickly diminished when under the hive of Arcos, ancient clone vats were found, harking back to their days of the Escher and the Blades before, thinking this to be a moment of salvation or maybe a way to overcome this flesh curse. In fact, once these clones were awakened, they were but insane, and they went on a murder rage-fueled craze throughout the hive and fled out into the ash wastes. Eventually, the age came to pass with the house on the brink of extinction. Yet one woman amongst the waning masses called Vodicea was able to lead a charge against another of these vultural attacks on Vat City with but a few warrior women by her side. And with that, with this new charge and power behind her, she marched on the halls of Elok to demand from this withered king action once again against the other hives. However, on entering the chambers, she found Elok and all the patriarchs dead. All that was left was a council of elder women who were all undecided on this chemical enhancement, yet, like Vodicea, sought change in the house and a new order moving forward. With this, Vodicea wrought the clan once again under her rulership as Matriarch Prime, and under her own name of the House of Escher. It was not the simple phoenix-like rise to the top for Vodicea, because the house was severely weakened and everyone around them knew that. Yet, those that did try to affect any fight against them were quickly reminded that the strength of the blades runs deep within the warrior women of the House of Escher. First of those who think to take the fight to the Eschers are the Orlocks. Seeking to secure their interests in the mines of the Ash Wastes, they want to retake and reclaim the Great Ash Road for themselves. However, at Ashtown, a large Escher-held bastion on the road, they are disavowed by a group of simple wild runners. Then Lord Gormak of House Corlorn makes a slight at the headdress of the current matriarch Prime, Dalian. Now, she seeks satisfaction and a duel is set. Lord Gormak, being the wimp that he is, sends his Goliath pit fighter in his stead, so Dalian takes the opportunity to make a point. Slowly but effectively, she withers and chips away at this Goliath, with poisons and effective cuts proving and showcasing her power and prowess, not only with the blade, but with poisons itself. Soon after these and many other moments, the other houses start to realise their error in seeing a weakness in a house that has risen from the depths of despair many times before, and as such, the House of Escher is able to effect its way back up that long road to the top. And by the time we find ourselves now in M41, the Queens of Necromunda are at the height of their power. And with the foreknowledge of how easy it is one can fall, they have cemented themselves within the hives, not only through the maintaining of their chemical factorums, but also the strengthening of their warrior peoples, having the largest fighting force of any clan, and through the effective positioning of their political prowess. Hence, the House of Escher is one to be definitely feared within the hives of Necromunda. And so that is the history of the House of Escher, one of the longest reigning factions in the current game, a tale that harks back to the end of the Arrhenius continuity, and with that, it's a story that takes us through the whole of the history of Necromunda and mirrors it in so many ways through this constant struggle for the gaining, retaining, and loss of power. And with this, the extremes by which they have had to make their way through this never-ending cycle. Starting off with their heavily powerful, strong warrior women, to their chemically fueled murder assassins, to the cult and religious further of their factorums. And all three of these elements playing a key part today in their current culture and setting of Necromunda. And with that, there's nothing more to say than how fabulously rich a gang this is to play within. I mean, you don't have to look much further than the models themselves to see how much of this lore they have crammed into their design, because they balance that cyber goth, warrior princess, cult faction with religious order into one perfectly beautiful line of models. If you're inspired by any of this, please go out there and make your own Escher gang for yourself, because they are freaking cool, and they've got such awesome mechanics as well, which we haven't even gone into here, but definitely on my top tier list for things to play in Necromunda. Anyway, with that, if they haven't been the one that has been like inspired you the most, there are going to be more of these gang lore series to come out, and I think the next one in my line is going to be the Delac. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell for the notifications so you know when that next gang lore video is coming out. And in the meantime, there's nothing more to say then. You stay safe in the Underhive, everyone. Take care. Bye.